born a demon. Have you ever noticed that nobody asks where the monsters came from? Oh, they'll ask how to kill one. They'll write poems about heroes defeating one. They'll even build festivals celebrating one. But ask what happened before the monsters. Suddenly, everyone becomes very busy. So, let me save you the trouble. I wasn't born a demon. I was born to a family that couldn't decide what I was. My father was a Brahmin, one of the greatest scholars of his age, a sage, a man who could explain the movement of stars, the meaning of life, the nature and the soul, and somehow never noticed his children were hungry. You think I'm exaggerating? Let me ask you this. If knowledge alone could fill stomachs, why did my mother spend every evening wondering what we'd eat tomorrow? Wisdom is wonderful. It just doesn't taste very good. My mother, now she was different. She was an asura, proud, fierce, the kind of woman who could make kings uncomfortable simply by looking at them. She had seen kingdoms rise, kingdoms fall, and yet nothing frightened her more than seeing her children go to bed hungry. If you've ever met a mother with empty cupboards, you'll know that the gods themselves work carefully around her. Now imagine their marriage, a philosopher and a survivor. One believed destiny would provide, the other knew destiny was usually late. They argued constantly, not loudly, quietly. The dangerous kind of argument, the kind where no one raises their voice because they're just too tired. Then there was my elder brother, Kumbhakaran. History has been not kind to him either. Apparently, all he did was sleep. That's what they remember. Wonderful. Spend one lifetime protecting your family, and centuries later, people reduce you to a bedtime joke. Yes, he slept. You know why he slept? Because when he was awake, he worked harder than anyone I know. He carried wood, he built huts, he fetched water, and lifted stones I couldn't even move. Then, he'd eat enough for 6 people because he'd earned it. And then he would sleep like a mountain. Honestly, if half the kings I'd met had worked half as much as Kumbhakarn, history would have been different and considerably shorter. And then there was Vibhishan, my younger brother, the saint. Even as a child, he had this unsettling habit of always being right. Have you ever had a sibling like that ever? Insufferable. You steal one mango and suddenly you're listening to a lecture on ethics. You throw a stone at someone and now you're discussing karma. Wonderful fellow, terrible brother. Then there was our little sister, Shurpanka. No, she wasn't terrifying, not then. She laughed too loudly, asked too many questions, climbed every tree she wasn't supposed to climb, and if there was trouble nearby, you could safely assume that she had introduced herself. History remembers her for one afternoon. I remember her for stealing my food, repeatedly. We had almost nothing, one leaking roof, a few clay pots, some worn clothes, and dreams. Far too expensive dreams for people like us. But don't feel sorry for me. Children have an extraordinary talent. They can turn poverty into adventure. One broken hut, a palace. A fallen branch, a royal sword. An old blanket, a king's cape. Funny, isn't it? Children don't notice they're poor until someone richer points it out. Which brings me to my dear half-brother, Kuber, the lord of wealth, my father's son. Not my mother's, my father's. He lived in Lanka, golden Lanka. If the sun ever wanted to admire itself, it said that it looked at Lanka. Every tower glittered, every street overflowed with trade. Ships arrived from lands I'd never even heard of. Spices, silks, jewels, gold. So much gold that if you sneezed, you'd probably hit something expensive. Meanwhile, I once celebrated finding an extra mango. Perspective is apparently everything. You know what envy feels like? People think it's anger. It isn't. It's arithmetic. You count what they have and then you compare what you don't. And every calculation hurts. One afternoon, mother took us to see Lanka. Not inside, just from across the water. I remember standing barefoot on the rocks, the sea roaring beneath us, the wind smelling of salt, and there it was, the golden Lanka, glowing, almost mocking us. Mother didn't say anything. She simply stared. I've spent years thinking about that silence. It wasn't admiration, it wasn't hatred. It was memory. That city had once belonged to her people, to the Asuras, to us. And now, someone else ruled it. Someone with my father's blood. Not hers, not ours. I asked her, can we go there? She smiled. The kind of smile adults invent when the truth would hurt too much. Not today. Children believe, not today. Adults know. It usually means never. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was hungry. That was ordinary. No. For the first time, I understood something. The world wasn't divided between good people and the bad people. It was divided between those who had everything and those who were expected to be grateful for nothing. And I hated it. Gods, how I hated that word. Not Kuber, not yet. The unfairness, the invisible wall, the rule that declared before I had spoken a single word, before I had lifted a single sword, before I had dreamed of my first impossible dream that one brother deserved a kingdom and the other deserved a hut. Tell me honestly, would that not make you angry? That was the first crack. Not in the world, in me. A tiny crack, barely visible, barely there. The kind nobody notices until years later when the whole mountain collapses. People think the story of Ravan begins with Sita or with Ram. They're wrong. It began with a little boy standing barefoot, looking across the sea at a city he believed should have been his. And once a child began asking, why not me? The world had better have a good answer. Because if it doesn't, this child will find one himself. Mine changed history.